Hello fellow readers of Discover Cuenca Ecuador, and here's Frank and Angie bringing you another letter from a reader. We don't do this all the time, just when we think other people might get something out of it. And so this person's, she's being nice to us, but she wants us to let other people know her experience with her dental experience here in Cuenca. And she says, "Hi Frank and Angie. After having read many articles, like the one on your blog," and she quotes a link where we talk about dentists. "We have good things to say about dentists in Ecuador." So she quoted the link. If you go read it, you'll see we don't recommend any particular dentists in Ecuador. We're simply describing our experience with dentists in Ecuador. That's what we do. That's what our blog's about. What it's really like for us to live here. You know, and the way we do things, you know, there's a certain way that we do things, there's a certain principles that we subscribe to. As you'll see, I'm going to read the letter. So after reading your article about how good the dentists were there, and doing research and gotten recommendations, important, I decided we don't give recommendations. We don't recommend going by recommendations. Let me tell you why. When we first got here, I know how it is. You go to a place, you don't know anybody, you think recommendations. We got a lawyer recommended to us. This guy, look.
Might want to wait till the bus goes by, hon. This is what it's like in Cuenca next to the river on 12 de Abril.
Okay, alright. So you've heard the saying, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, right? So, when we first came here, we got a lawyer recommended. I'm sure he's a nice guy. This is not anything against him personally. But this was our experience. The guy dropped the ball. We sat around for 2 years. And so we got that fixed. And so recommendation. And then since then, there has been other situations with recommendations that we've written about on the blog. You can do a search for that. But that's the first red flag right here. She got recommendations. Probably thinking, well, how am I supposed to? Okay, we'll get to that. I decided to get 4 dental crowns done in Cuenca instead of the US. And my experience was horrible. I would like to share that to help others considering having dental work there. I'm not trying to give Cuenca a negative face, but she's going to do it. I feel it's necessary that people know what they're getting into by having dental work done in Ecuador. The dentist I went to there is very popular. Well, who's he popular with? The dentist I went to there is very popular and came highly recommended. Recommended by who? For who? He cemented my crowns in and then told me how unhappy he was with his work. Then he offered for me to return to Ecuador next year so he could redo them at no extra charge. Well, that was pretty manly of him. Well, returning to Ecuador is not really an option. Aha, second red flag. Further, I had the crowns checked here when I got back, and the dentist confirmed what the Cuenca dentist said, that the crowns were too short and didn't cover my teeth, so he said that the US dentist said that they would begin to decay and they should be replaced without delay. I'm currently trying to get the Ecuador dentist to refund my inflated amount of money, unquoted, because I now have a huge dental bill here in the US. He is not being very responsive. I've since learned that Ecuador uses materials that are considered substandard. Aha, another red flag. You since learned? I thought you said you did research and got recommendations. Yeah, there's red flags all over the place in this. Okay. I've since learned Ecuador uses materials that are considered substandard in the US. Anyone who has a bad experience there has no recourse if the work is poor. Well, that's pretty normal here. I think it's important that this type of problem be brought to the surface. I am sure I'm not the only person who had a similar experience. Well, The first reaction I have on something like this is that, yeah, we wrote an article about our experience with dentists, but you gotta understand, we don't go to English speaking dentists. We don't take recommendations, and we do everything on a do-it-yourself level. Now, I'm not trying to, toot my own horn. I'm just saying, a certain way you do things has something to do with your experience, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a negative experience, but the chances, that's important. The chances of you having a bad experience. Think about this for a minute. What you're betting on, what you're saying, okay, the whole thing with medical tourism or dental tourism, whenever we talk, we don't talk about that. Think about it. When you are betting on something like this, you're saying that you're going to come in here and do a surgical strike, no pun intended. You're going to come in and in a few days get several hundreds of dollars worth of, over $1,000 worth of work done, right? And you're betting that everything is going to go right and be perfect and nothing's going to go wrong. And then you're going to go back home a happy camper. Okay. Well, what's wrong with that picture? Now, when we went to the dentist, we live here, we're residents, and we didn't have a bad experience. Now, I have to say, our dental assistant, she was trying to do such a good job when I went to get my teeth cleaned here. She was working so hard. My teeth, I used to drink molasses, and they put a little, they do put a little brown on your teeth. That's why you go get them cleaned, right? So she's trying to do such a good job. She's pressing so hard. She caused a hairline crack. Now it's my tooth because my tooth's full of fillings from when I was a teenager. Used to eat cookies. And so my tooth is very weak. She didn't know that. She pressed so hard on it, the hairline cracked. The next day, the piece of the tooth fell off. I was a little sore about it, but I realized it wasn't her fault. So I don't hold it against her. What I'm trying to say is, things don't always work out perfect, even when you have allotted all of the time in the world, because you live here, you go, you pay local prices, you do everything the way you're supposed to, you've checked out the dental place, it's got all the latest equipment. That doesn't mean everything's going to go perfect. Even for residents, imagine the kind of risk you're putting yourself into when you're betting that everything is going to go just right. Not only that, but it's confined to a limited space of time. I mean, you're really gambling. You're gambling with your well-being. So, you're just gambling with your satisfaction. That's what I should say. Probably hadn't thought about that. Yeah. Now, there's other issues with this letter. Yeah, I'm not going to demonize the Ecuador dental industry. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. My experience, we've been to the dentist several times. We brought friends to the dentist because they didn't speak Spanish. They didn't have that, I mean, sometimes things just don't work out perfectly, and who knows? Look, we write about this in the guide.
Hola,
¿cómo le va? ¿Todo bien? Hey, de Colombia, ¿sí? Argentina. Watch out. Argentinos. Okay. Where was I? Okay. The first thing is, okay, it's normal to want to warn people. We do that all the time. But you got to understand how much of a role your decision-making process had in the kind of experience that you had.
Exactly.
First thing here, it says, I did research and got recommendations. Well, you did research and got recommendations, and yet you didn't know until later in the letter, after everything happened and you went back home, that Ecuador uses according to, and who told you that Ecuador uses substandard material? Dental offices use substandard. Who told you that? A U.S. dentist? If a U.S. dentist is talking to you like that, he is violating dental association protocol and could be, it's not disbarred, that's for lawyers. He could lose his license. That's bad practice for a dental association, And for him to just demonize the whole country like that, I don't believe him. I don't believe him for a minute. I don't believe him. Talk about unprofessional. Okay, so you did your research, got recommendation, but then later, because your U.S. dentist is saying so, you believe him, and and that's another thing. Okay, look, like the shared experience. That's fine. The dentist there I went to was very popular. With who? Now see, some gringo says very popular. This tells me he's very popular with the gringo community. Well, that's a red flag to us, because okay, look, I understand why gringos do this, but I'm saying it's fraught with pitfalls, okay? This is nothing but a money machine for a business to have just gringos waiting in line. And, you know, I think that the dentist here actually is a good person, because he offered to redo it. Now,
yeah, that's right.
You know, you don't live here, so whose fault is that? You don't live here. As far as recourse, yeah, it's tough to get recourse when you are not a citizen and you live in some foreign country. Try it in the States. Try to get recourse in the States if you're some foreigner. You know, and if you have no standing. Because a foreigner has no standing. You know? And he's just a visitor. He's a visitor, right? Okay, so the crowns. Okay. The other red flag was how much she paid. Of course, I'm not surprised, because this is probably an English-speaking dentist, recommended by gringo community. Well recommended. What popular? You know. And so yeah, of course he's charging you 60%, 75% more than local rates, because you don't speak Spanish. I mean, there's so many red flags. No, I'm sorry that you had a bad experience, but we need to understand how much of a part we played in the way we made our choices. You know, to where we slanted the probabilities that the probabilities were higher that you could end up having a dissatisfied experience. Face it, if you were living here, you would just go back, get them redone, and oh well, I had to get it redone. But yeah, the guy made it right, didn't he? But you can't do that because you don't live here. So, you know, recourse. I would have. I mean, you know, since when do you pay for a high-priced service up front? Everybody I know in the States that's a contractor doesn't ever get 100% of their money up front. They always get a third up front. Then when they get halfway done, they get another third, and then when they're completely done and everything's satisfied, they get the last third. So why are you paying up front for it? You know, I mean, there's so many issues with this letter. Again, I'm not trying to minimize or downplay or slap or you know, discount what this person is saying. I'm sorry that you had a bad experience, but you got to understand, we don't promote this kind of behavior. We don't recommend it. Lots of people do, but we don't do it. We just don't do it, and we don't believe in it. And we have our experiences to back up our beliefs. And
there are 4 pages of dentists just in Cuenca alone in the phone book.
There's dentists on every flipping corner. They're like pizza shops and Mexican restaurants in the U.S., okay? So, I mean, you could have got yourself a student that speaks English and paid them whatever, just to take you down there,
$5 to $10
help you out with the language, and save hundreds of dollars. And the thing is, the more money you spend, right, the more you want to complain, right? Right? So, but again, I'm sorry that you got a bad job.
We've always had good experiences with our dentists.
At least the guy admitted it, and he wanted to make it right, did the best he could to do so.
That's right.
And
I think that was really professional of him.
You know, so again, I think there is a lot to learn from this, and that's why we mentioned it. And again, I am just not there. I'm not going to demonize the Ecuadorian dental industry. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, based on our experience. It's not a guess or an intuition or a...
We've all been to the dentist in our family.
Not clairvoyant or something like that. I'm just telling you our experience. Okay, Frank and Angie in Cuenca, Ecuador, discovering what it's really like to live abroad.
All right, bye.
Have a nice day.